So I just finished the sheet metal detail. One of the things that I noticed is that everything is in 3 decimal places. For sheet metal, we're probably not going to want to hold plus or minus 5 thousandths per our title block. Maybe even the plus or minus 10 or 15 thousandths is going to be. So we may need to put an overriding all bin lengths, all finished, maybe plus or minus 20 or even 30, depending on what we're capable of holding. So I want to look down through the filters. This is the same as hitting F5, I believe. Make sure I'm in there. Hit F5, and the filters will come on and off. You do have to be careful because these have edge is E, V is for vertices. As you go across some of these, if you accidentally hit an E, you're just going to be selecting edges. I'm looking to just select for the dimensions and the callouts. So I want to window pick everything, and then I can switch the precision over to 2 decimal places. Alright, so that gives it a little more functionality, but I do want to remember to come back over and make sure to turn that filter back off. Alright, so one dimension that I'm missing, and we don't want to change that for the entire drawing. So each time I add an additional dimension, I'm going to need to come over and modify the group. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the dimensions. I think we're okay. If there were any additional critical, or we make the first round of these parts and start doing testing, then we could go back and refine, figure out what we need. All right, so a second view. Not seeing anything here. Just lots of numbers. The bend drawings, so those would go as the group together. Bends off of center line. And one of the issues off of the center line still comes back to, we're going to end up doing some math here as part of the manufacturing process. So clean that up a little bit. One of the things I might want to include is if we go to a couple of additional dimensions, maybe I make these reference by putting parentheses around them. Critical dimensions are off of center line, making sure we have those lengths. If it shifts within that tolerance zone. But if I'm just doing a measurement to quick verify the outside edges, then I really don't want the machinist to have to do that math and come up with a number. So if I provide 2 reference, basically it's going to be times 2, but it gives a quick stack up of we have the overall, we have the outside wings. So that looks a little better. Still not sure what's going on with my sheet format that I ended up with that extra surface finish, but I'll have to resolve that at some point. Again, diameters, everything coming off of center lines. If we're manufacturing this for the CNC, probably going to make some additional changes. We have the 2 times by the 0.433, and those are both through. Yeah. So, pretty much doing that kind of quick check of, does it make sense? Alright, so this guy was a little complicated. I remember seeing that one. So let's check sheet 6. There's a few more dimensions that we could do symmetrical. Again, we have an overall, we have the lengths. Did we set a depth? Depth is on the side, so that looks pretty good. If I do the more critical as between these 2 and the 984s, so maybe that has to fit in. If this was a plus nothing minus something on the width, then maybe it'd work more from the position. If it's something needs to be controlled to the outside, we would go with these. So on our dimensions, I don't see anything that's being missed terribly, but again, another set of eyes, another review process may pick up some of those items that I miss as I go through this process. And then I just wanted to note a full radius, so it's always going to warn me whenever I modify. And so we're just going to give that the full, and really could do ×2 there. Probably need to do ×2, but it's going to be able to control that we're not doing any foreshortened or extended on the extensions on the radius. Let's see, I don't see a depth on that one, so let's go ahead and catch that real quick. Okay. Alright, so let's come back to, we'll go ahead and save the document, let it update and catch up. Alright, so we did a ordinate dimension off of the end, caught most of our geometry. Let's see, for the width, well, let's stay with the ordinate dimensions. Once you kind of pick the ordinate, probably should stay with it. Alright, so little strange coming off of the left side. I'm not quite sure why I did that. So because it's an odd shape, there's not really a lot of flat areas. I don't know that it makes much difference, but we'll go through and see what we can catch. Alright, so we'll bring those through to our centers, our overall. And then the width. This is going to be a little problematic because we don't want to dimension to the hidden lines, and I'm going to lose some of that geometry if I make that a crop view. So this would be relatively 2 times, since we have the gap between the two. Make sure I'm back in my smart dimension. Pick those up. Alright. So same thing for the outside. Let's go with an ordinate dimension. Pick our 0. Trying to decide what the critical items in each of these views is going to be. Alright, so that line kind of comes down. That would be a duplicate dimension if I carried it up. And we have flats. So I don't know that the flaps really help us there. So let's drop in a chamfer dimension. And we'll see if we have a couple of those. So that's a 276 as well. And if we come back over to this one, that one's a little bit different. So try and get those out of the way. Do a little cleanup as we go. Find our detail. Okay. Alright, so other than the view from the end, so this one was linear, that one had the radius, so I do need to include that radius. And then there's going to be a smaller blending radius. And I want to just hit that grip so that it reverses. Alright, so we're getting some geometry in there. I'm at the point where I'm not sure what I really need to add. Now we can do the lengths on this one. Maybe keep it a little less cluttered. So if I come back to the ordinate dimension, and go to the width, so that becomes a duplicate at that point if I keep the other one, so we can just remove it. So decision time. I need to figure out a way to bring that in either as a section and detail, or crop that out. So it's going to make it a little busy if I do that as a section view, but it might be the better option. So if I go to the midpoint, and we're just going to do a standard section, you can see the cut lines. Not real fond of the font, but that's about what we usually get. So since the 0, that may have been why I chose 0 and 0 off of that corner, was we're going to go in relation to that arc. And the annotation, let's see if we can generate a center mark. A little too big, or a little bit bigger than what I need. So let's scroll down here. We'll do the document defaults and turn that one off. Alright, so that one pretty much is in line. I don't know how to depict that any better. So from our ordinate, if we're going to stay with that, I really don't see a point in setting that to 0, but let's go ahead and see what it gets. Goes through the center, and we'll go ahead and hit OK. So I'm always kind of thinking, is that going to make it easier to read or more confusing? So not entirely sure at this point. So let's go back to our smart dimension. We'll put a radius on this. Let's see if I can find a place where it's not going to take over too bad. Kind of extend that out. Really not a good place. We're getting, well, we knew we were going to have a little bit of detail there. So we'll move that over and out a little bit, bring that in. So I don't really want to bring it all the way across the part, but in line it's not going to hurt anything or hurt as bad. So let's see if we go with a reference. That one's a line. Interested to see. No, it can end up being 0.748. There's just a split there. Alright, so that gives a good start to it, I think, for a first pass. We're going to have the section lines a little bit interference there, so let's go ahead and do that. And that should give us a good start. Bring it up for review and make another pass on the detail.